So, I'm sure you guys are already aware of the recent patch update that went out a couple of weeks ago in regards to the recent content update that finally hit Red Dead Online. I say content update, but really it's just certain things being released one week after another, which we like to call drip feeding due to the fact that Rockstar love to see us suffer and how they love to take their time releasing certain pieces of said content to the public. I mean, if you log on to Twitter and scroll around the thread of the most recent tweets that Rockstar has put out, you're more than likely bound to find nothing but comments from an entitled generation who loves nothing more than to bitch and complain about something every single time. Never ceases to amaze me. I know I may have certain nitpicks over certain topics, but Christ alive, this can't be that serious. But getting back to the subject at hand, I actually want to go ahead and tackle certain things that I found while reading the patch notes that I thought were kind of interesting that I think you guys may want to take into account. That is, if you happen to still play the game and give a damn about it in general. So, grab something to write with. This may take a while.
Ooh, that's kind of small. Yikes.
Before you happen to say anything, yes, I'm aware that I'm late to the party, but it's better to be late than to never actually participate in the subject at hand. And just a quick heads up, the last time I've done a patch update video was when Watch Dogs 2 was still relevant, so just note that I will go over certain things that pique my interest, particularly in terms of PvP and how they may affect anyone who actually gives a damn about the game to begin with. Starting from the beginning, all weapons, including the new Evans repeater and rare shotgun, have been given a slight nerf in regards to the range at which players can acquire huge amounts of damage from while performing headshots. I know headshots are supposed to kill your targets outright, with just one hit to the noggin, but that's usually not the case, especially in this game. What this means is that for the most part, you're more than likely are going to have to get a bit closer to your target if you actually want to achieve the maximum damage output on the heads of your enemies. From what I've been seeing, however, other people besides myself have still managed to score a couple kills in the process, but that's usually easy when you have a rifle, repeater, and auto aim on your side. This may need to be tested in the near future, but I'm just going to go ahead and say screw it. Speaking of rifles, it seems as though the Carcano and rolling block rifles have been given an edge in terms of relative damage when used on other players, the rolling block rifle being stronger than the Carcano, if you didn't happen to notice. From what I've seen, it's actually a release, since the only times you can actually get a sure kill is when you perform headshots or when their health is extremely low. From my perspective, it usually takes about 2 to 3 body shots with a couple of limb shots in between before I can actually take someone down, but that's usually a norm for rifle users in general. Unless you're aiming for the noggin, it's going to take you some time. A thing worth noting is to mix certain ammunition types with certain weapons. Rifles are without a doubt the stronger counterpart to their repeater brethren, so if you want a sure kill, express and high velocity ammo rounds are your best friend. That, or you can just cheese the shit out of other players with explosive rounds. It's really your call. The funny thing about this is that I barely see anyone using the sniper rifles besides myself and a couple of other people that I know. It's not usually the most preferred weapon, especially, with the fact that, they're long range weapons and you cannot turn off the freaking scopes on them because they're automatically sniper rifles in this case. Either way, you probably end up seeing Lancaster repeaters or varmint rifles being used and abused in PvP matches most of the time anyway. The varmint rifle, which is yet another weapon that I can add to my list of weapons that are the bane of my existence list, is a different story since it's received both a buff and a nerf at the same time, or in other words, a burf, which I usually like to call it. As we're already aware, it's the weakest in the family due to the pea-sized damage that it gives off, unless it's a headshot because it's technically a 22 caliber bullet. But now it has an increased damage output when dealt to other players with normal body shots and limb shots. So if you happen to play the Showdown series, then there's a good chance it'll be even more flustered now since the majority of the players happen to main this weapon. Besides that, it also has an increased accuracy spread in order to bring it up to par with other fast-firing long arms, which could either be repeaters or certain shotguns that most people use. If you didn't happen to notice by now, the varmint rifle has always had a consistent firing rate, making it a bit quicker than most long arms that other individuals utilize. The only downside to using this weapon is that it now has reduced locked-on range. That means some of us are going to have a hard time, getting kills from far away, and actually have to get in close if you want to insta-lock something, and that's just in general. I've also been told by Tails that from the looks of it, it seems as though the varmint rifles usually don't kill you outright with a headshot, but then again, I still call bullshit on that one since everyone loves to dome me with that goddamn weapon. It's a nightmare. It's just a plain nightmare. Moving along from my horrid dreams, fire and poison arrows will now be converted back to original arrows after using them on either NPCs or other players upon retrieving them from the corpses. I had assumed that maybe they're trying to put a heavy emphasis on special ammunition crafting before joining any session, but that's just my 2 cents, here or there. Along with that, the visibility of the trail effect that the arrows leave behind have slightly increased. This just basically explains that now we have an easier time tracking down the asshole who attempted to assassinate us in the process. I think this applies to all arrow types except for the dynamite because, explosions. But I could be wrong, so be sure to call me out on my bullshit, and that's with anything that I've addressed thus far. Getting to the juicier bits, which are the ability cards, I'm going to go ahead and set Deadeye aside for a moment so that we can focus on the other cards that have been called to attention, starting with the short game combat ability card. For this one, the required distance factor has been reduced, meaning that you don't have to be as far from the target as you initially were, ensuring that you can still deal a little more damage over time. The peak condition ability card, which is a recovery card mind you, drains less stamina while sprinting for all tiers, and the damage bonus scales with how much stamina you have left to offer in your tank. Since you need at least 75% of your total stamina to activate this card, it's best not to rush into battle as of yet and save it for the time being. Your downside is that your maximum damage output has been reduced. That means no extra cheese for you. The Eye for an Eye recovery ability card now works in Deadeye, ironically, and only grants you extra Deadeye if your headshots actually kill your target. None of that fake ass hit marker bullshit that we've been dealing with in the past. The downside is that the Deadeye that's been granted for each headshot you pull off has been reduced at tiers 2 and 3 to allow for consistency with other ability cards. In other words, I think they're trying to make this card as fair as possible for the most part, but then again, I could be wrong. The Unblinking Eye defense ability card, which drains both your Eagle Eye and Deadeye at a slower rate, can now be used while in either one of the 2 modes. Winning Streak, the other combat ability card that most people have utilized during the entire point in this game, was also mentioned in the patch notes. This card, along with Peak Condition and Short Game, are now only activated for 2 seconds when dealing damage to an enemy. It's kind of crazy, but I'm guessing they're trying to wean us off certain cards and experiment a little, but we all know that's never going to happen, unfortunately. And now, getting to the Deadeye cards, all of them, excluding Painted Black, have been nerfed in terms of giving off the perfect accuracy when in combat, and Slow and Steady doesn't always win the race in this case, as that card has received a double whammy in the process. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. In a way, I actually saw this coming, and while I'm relieved, I'm also kind of heartbroken that now we actually have to go cold feet on it unless we're in a desperate situation, I suppose. When you think about it, every other showdown session that you're in, or free roam for that matter, there's always going to be that one person who will use and abuse Deadeye for every shot that they take, whether it be me or the person right next to you. It's insanely frustrating to deal with, especially when you're playing Name Your Weapon, and the only weapons that most people will particularly use in that mode is the double barrel shotgun or the tomahawk. Trust me when I say that everyone uses it, because I'm one of those players who will personally cheese the shit out of you just to get ahead. It's easy to get a kill with a shotgun when you're up close to somebody, but it's easier when you have the ability that allows your shots to be pinpoint accurate like a sniper perched up on the balcony. That's just real talk. Revolvers are a close second with or without it, and nobody touches the rifles unless they're absolutely sure that they can dominate it with them. Getting back to Slow and Steady, every time that you have this card activated now, you lose Deadeye upon taking damage. So if you're already aware of the perks that the card gives you, then you should be fine as long as you don't use it every single time. You have to remember that when you're using Deadeye, your core and your gauge will drastically reduce, which will mess up your shots and get you killed almost immediately. Just a heads up. And one last thing that before we leave off, the instant transmission kill exploit has been patched, which blows ball sacks. If you don't happen to know what I'm talking about, then allow me to elaborate. Beforehand, there was a glitch that allowed you to teleport behind your opponent after they broke free from your tackling animation, whether it be from the loss of stamina or dismissing the action. If you continue to hold to the direction stick forward, you'll end up popping up right behind and can proceed to get an insta kill with your melee weapon of choice, which was fucking hilarious. However, I would assume as though a lot of people complain about this, and the devs at Rockstar had to look into the situation themselves before they determined that not only is this game breaking, but also seems to be, dare I say, cheating. Now whenever you try to perform this maneuver, you'll just stand there looking like a complete dumbass before getting completely owned. It's, oh god, it's hilarious in more ways than one. So AFK kill, come here, come here, come here, come here. And oh no, no, shit. No. Ah! No! They had to have patched it! No! God damn it, no!
You're trying to use that exploit, eh?
Yes, the freaking instant transmission! No! They patched it! Fuck! No, my plans! My fucking plans!
My plans.
They ruined it!
My time. My money. My
Safe.
God, my faith in Rockstar's gone! This bullshit! But that basically covers everything in this video for the time being. So, until then, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll be sure to talk about drip feeding more in the future, whether or not I feel like it. But other than that, love you all, have a nice day, and peace. Oh god! Oh shit!